Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3, roll call.
Dr. Cephalou?
Present.
Gary Stansberry?
Present.
Kendra Thomas?
Present.
Angelina Bracata?
Present.
Jackie Cheramy?
Present.
William McCarty?
Present.
Donald Stevens?
Present.
All right, moving on to item 4, approval of the minutes from the meeting of April 5th, 2023.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of April 5th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That was Donald.
Yes. Moving on to item 5, financial report.
Okay, a statement of the net position as of March 31st, 2023. Our current assets are $1,666,748.64. The total restricted assets are $719,888.29. Our total assets are $2,388,648.93. Our total liabilities are 0, so our total liabilities and net position is $2,388,648.93.
Motion to accept the financial report.
I make a motion to accept the financial report.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 6, just a brief chairperson's report. As we discussed at the previous meeting, we heard community members, community leaders, and regarding willingness to want to do everything that we could do to respond to that desire to work towards a reopening of our OB unit. We've been putting things in place to get on the ballot in October in order to create a scenario that will allow us to assist in that endeavor. And that's what we've been working on in the background since our last meeting. No real other developments other than really hyper-focused on getting all this coordinated, getting all the proper mechanisms in place to reach deadlines so we can get on that ballot. So nothing really to report beyond that unless anyone has any specific questions for me. Satisfied for me? We'll talk more privately. Moving on to item 7, guest and public comment. Anyone? Good. Moving on to item 8, discussion and any action to announce regular meeting dates for the remainder of the calendar year. We had previously taken a vote to go to every other month. Obviously, things have changed, and I think it's prudent that we now go back to our previous schedule of monthly meetings with intermittent special meetings if necessary in between. So I just need a motion to change back our schedule, and we're going to have those read off as far as the dates here shortly. If you guys approve that.
Make that motion, change back to monthly meetings.
Second.
Who was that again?
Okay.
And those dates will be June 7th, July 5th, August 2nd, September 6th, October 4th, November 1st, and December 6th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, discussion and any action and resolution to call an election and propose a 5.5 mil property tax.
Yeah, so we've had bond council draft of resolutions, we've circulated those to you, and the only thing really that I want to talk to you about is the actual wording of the proposition. So in that proposition paragraph relative to labor and delivery. And there was some discussion about including in it additionally essential services, warming services, things of that nature. So I just wanted to invite a discussion really relative to that.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have women's services as kind of the main focus. Obviously, that's the reason why we're pursuing this to start, but also to have the wording such that, once we hopefully accomplish that goal, that we're able to then reassess the needs of the community, reassess what service lines may need some additional help, and be able to then change direction, change focus to those other potential services. So I think the wording is going to be important. We obviously want to be as clear as we can be with the public, but we also want to keep a little room a little bit of room, so as things evolve, we can evolve with it. But I think having OBGYN/health services as a primary focus, and then primary care services, it would probably be another good wording to have in that proposal. Curious to get your thoughts.
Which services fall under primary care services?
So primary care would be OBGYN, pediatrics, general surgery, basic surgery, internal medicine, family medicine. Throw psychiatry in there as well. So basic service lines, not super subspecialists, just what you could hope to expect to find at any medium-sized hospital is basically what that encompasses. When we, up to this point, have had all of those services except now for the pediatric service line. So those are the ones where we want to shore. So understanding that we want to make sure that that primary care foundation is always present. And so right now our gap is OBGYN, OB, and then pediatrics. And then if anything occurs that puts any of those other service lines on shaky ground, we could potentially redirect those funds to another service line. Would be the thought process.
You know, if you want to have orthopedics in there or not, or
right. So I think if we can leave broad under, we may be in a situation where we accomplish what we hope to accomplish with OB. All the other essential services are pretty strong, let's say, but everybody wants some orthopedics, or everybody wants some other type of specialty service that we don't currently have. We could potentially assist in that regard as well. So how do you word that to allow for that potential? So maybe having that as physician recruitment kind of encompasses kind of that in general. But with the understanding that primary care service lines are our main focusing goal with this ad valorem tax.
And so how many years is this tax good for before we have to go back and go to the polls again for a second time?
as the resolution reads now, it would be 10 years.
It would be 10 years, and we at any point in time could elect not to even draw the tax. And so it really would be based on what our needs are.
Is it possible to define primary care services in the proposition, just so that, and say something like such as, and then that still leaves a little bit of breathing room for something like orthopedics or some other necessity?
I'm thinking we could put special services, after primary services, just to cover that, but in messaging to the public, they could be told, what the focus is, and that the board really just sort of wants to have the flexibility to adapt to the future needs. Remember, this language has to go on the ballot itself. So this one paragraph in the resolution right under millage proposition is actually what gets approved and authorized to be put on the ballot, so the voters have to read that. So there's sort of a balancing between trying to have it be clear and accurate and short to the point and not be, too cumbersome and too long.
Is the restricted asset portion that we currently have, is that going to be part of this as well, or is that something?
So we have two resolutions. The second
So it's going to
resolution,
be one and a two?
right?
I don't vote for this one to vote for that one.
They're totally separate. Totally separate. Is where we're envisioning it now, but the thinking is we would get some further studies done in the community, and if at some point it's determined that that's, we don't want to proceed with the withdrawal at this deadline in July, basically, where you can back off and say, okay, we don't want to have that one on the ballot, so we won't go forward with that one anymore. But in starting the process, we have in this too, because of and we're getting ahead of ourselves on the agenda, but since you brought it up, the rededication, I'm told, is not something that really the State Bond Commission has to approve, since that tax money was already collected, and it's basically just funds in an account, and it's a rededication, so it doesn't have to go through the same process. Because we looked at incorporating them both, and then we talked about the cumbersome nature of doing something like that, and the ease, the effort to want to simplify basically the language if possible. So would you want me to sort of do a final maybe read of this proposition? Okay. So the language, I think it, based on the discussion, the Hospital Service District No. 2 of the Parish of St. Mary, State of Louisiana, the district, levy 5.5 mil tax on all the property subject to taxation within the district for a period of 10 years, beginning with the year 2023 and ending with the year 2032. An estimated $2 million reasonably expected at this time to be collected from the levy of the tax for an entire year, to be used by the district to improve, maintain, and operate hospital and other healthcare facilities in the district, to include providing and supporting primary care services, including labor and delivery services, special services, physician improvement, and community outreach activities. And that would basically be the proposition. And so if that's acceptable to you, then we would, then I would recommend that you have a motion to adopt that resolution, and then we'll go forward with the process with resolution number 1.
Anybody have any comments, suggestions? I think it's the balancing that between not being too overwhelming, not too much information in there. Because when we'll get to the rededication of funds, I mean, I think it's important for the community to know that we already had those funds. It's just they're restricted for operations, and so we're just looking to free up that capital that we use for other purposes, like supporting primary care service lines, OB, or others. So I think the way that reads is pretty concise. I think it hits all the objectives. It's clear.
The community outreach activities, what specifically are we talking about continuing to support the community, the endeavor with Ochsner and the community outreach that we're doing?
Yes, but I think it's broad enough to encompass other things. Like, for example, we have community outreach with Morgan City High School's allied health program, and we potentially do it with other high schools in this district. And so that constitutes a community outreach endeavor that doesn't include Ochsner St Mary. So it would, I think, be both. It's broad enough to cover community outreach that's within the scope of the objectives of this hospital service district.
So, I mean, this may be part of the conversation we plan to continue later, but if we're trying to, I guess, really hone in on the language for this now, I understand we're trying to keep that wide berth so that we can, like you guys said, which I think is also incredibly important, to be able to maneuver as times change and allocate to what needs the support, because we don't know what's coming around the bend next. I totally understand that, and I do support that. But as far as, a voter's perspective, showing up to the polls, I still think that perhaps we can rework it again ever so slightly to really drive home that the purpose of this, the reason this is all beginning, is labor and delivery in pediatrics. And I just think it's going to be really important that piece of it specifically, even if we say labor and delivery services and other primary care services, like keeping labor and delivery sort of as the front and center of what the wording is, may be more appealing when you're at the polls.
So would you want it to read, labor and delivery services, comma, primary care services, special services, and physician recruitment, and going on?
I think physician recruitment should even come before special services, because
Okay.
everyone knows that the recruitment is so incredibly important, and it is a huge part of
Right.
the labor and delivery element of it.
Right, they're handling gloves.
So after labor and delivery, you think?
Labor and delivery,
Physician recruitment?
physician recruitment, and primary care
Yes, sir.
services. I still think that, the community outreach activities, I'm all about community outreach. And though that really muddies some waters, I think optically, I know we want money there for that. So maybe it stays just like it is, but I just wanted to give a little push in that department, because if I'm showing up to the polls and I don't fully understand what are we saying? Are we talking about like communities, celebrations of health? Like what are we talking about when we say community outreach? That in and of itself might deter me from a yes vote.
And so I guess my comment to that is the goal of this is again, just to legally cover us so that whatever you decide to fund can be funded. And we have to understand that we have to finalize this tonight, and the size that we're allocated on the ballot is fixed. And so the text, the more we include, the smaller the text is.
Sure.
And the harder to read. And so I think that what we need to do is focus after tonight on messaging to the public, to educate the public on, what the actual specific purposes are. We just can't really fit all that in this block.
Oh, I understand that.
So that's,
Absolutely. But is there another word for outreach activities, like community education, or something where instead of the
community health and welfare? I mean, we could get language from the statute. I mean, and take it right out of one of the purposes of this board is to improve the health of the community. So if we want to fund blood pressure, hypertension seminars, and
even if we just took out the word activities, I feel like the word activities is the thing that's really throwing me for a loop, because I don't know what that is. What are we paying for? Like sound systems and DJs or some sort of which we know we're not. We know that that's not necessarily part of it, but just showing up to it, and I see activities.
Right. And I think this was, drafted from a legal perspective, and so it's you're thinking of more of, healthcare activities, but I certainly see your point. So we can change that to read, community, healthcare endeavors.
No, I think endeavors is gonna be too much.
You think so?
Yeah.
What do you suggest?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's keep it kind of simple.
Just what about community outreach?
Right. Just dropping the activities part.
Okay.
That's
Do that too?
fine too.
Community outreach sounds.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that, and I feel like that is clear with what we plan to do with it. If there's money there for us to do something with, it's still clear. It's just.
And do we need specialty services if we still got physician recruitment, which is going to probably encompass that?
No, unless we're in a situation where we have to start up a unit, like we may have to start up OB. So one of the things to consider when starting OB is to have potentially like a laborist involved. Anyway, I don't know. I'm sure starting up orthopedics is not quite the same, but that's something that's. So just thinking about those kind of possibilities.
Right.
So, would y'all entertain over comment on this?
Yeah, sure.
So, they know that another meeting. So, I believe you're so vague that you won't pass. I won't support that. It has to be exactly specific on what you're selling. I understand where you're coming from, but the people picked apart on the police and fire tax, what is the net proceeds, right? They wanted to know exactly how much of it was being collected by, was being paid for by, paid to whoever was collecting the tax. That was part of the net because they're so gun shy of people being vague and the money going wherever it needs to go instead of where they think it's going in the future. And everything is so transparent now. You know, with Facebook and whatever other spaces they got out there, I'm not in everything with Facebook. You know, I passed 2 taxes when I was on the drainage district, and one passed 72% and one passed 77%. We just passed the fire and police tax at 87%. Because we're very, very specific on what we asked for and where it was going and what it was protected to do. He's right. You only have a certain block, about 5 sentences, right? 5 lines, right? Just say what you have to say on it. That's it. And I don't even think they'll shrink it down very much. I mean, it's got to be a certain size letter. So I think if you go and just say vaguely it's going towards OB and this and that, that's not the deal that Ochsner said. Ochsner says, in the meeting I had with him, was if we use this money, it's for recruiting people for OB, right? If you don't put it specifically like that, and if you don't have something in writing, you have anything in writing from Ochsner that says, if you do this, then we will bring it back?
In writing, no.
Well, I don't trust them dudes at all. No.
So the discussion was basically that recruitment, yes. So we have to get your providers. And also there was discussion regarding not just physicians, but nursing staff actually being able to actually fund the unit until it gets to a safe level, 30 deliveries per month.
But how can you go and ask people for money when you don't have a contract with somebody for deliverables? In other words, if you deliver the money, they have to deliver the service. If you deliver the money and get the recruiting up and get the people in, then they have to supply the service. How are we going to get money from somebody for somebody that makes millions of dollars off of us already every year, and that's proven, without a specific use for this money, exact use? I'm kind of with that. All right. You know, I don't see it. I don't see it happening. The first step, y'all bypass the most important step in negotiation. Put it down and reduce it to writing. There's nothing in writing from Ochsner saying if you accomplish A, get the money, and B, help us get it recruited and get it staffed, then C, they're gonna supply the service. Until you have that, there's no reason to go to people for the vote. It won't happen. I won't support it. I won't go against it, but I won't support it because I've already seen what they do. They wait till the 9th hour, the 9th inning, full count, and then they call me for a meeting 3 days before they're gonna cancel. You know, before it's done. I don't believe unless you make them put it in writing that they're gonna hold up to the end of the bargain. That's what I believe. The governor believes the same thing. Talk to him.
So we would need to reach out to Ochsner and ask them to basically just put in writing what we verbally agreed to.
Yeah, we can do that. If they came to the meeting and stated publicly that was the joint plan. So we have them, in a public meeting,
But that don't hold up in court.
essentially agreeing that, but it's verbal. I mean, but if we need to feel like there is a need for a written document, and that's something that you feel strongly about as mayor, and
I feel strongly about it as a taxpayer. I pay a lot of taxes.
Then I think we can ask for that.
Mm-hmm.
And look, you pass the tax with no problem at that point. You can actually be a little bit vague in it. You know, you a little bit vague, not a
Okay,
whole
so
lot
to
vague.
keep our timeline, could we get with Austin, get him to put it in writing, and then have to call a special meeting so we can get this resolution?
No, I think the resolution today is just that, a resolution. So to keep the timeline, we have to pass the resolution today, because we've got to go to the Parish Council next, and they have to agree, and then it goes to the bond commission. But what we can do is, at the same time, we can go to Ochsner tomorrow, start the process to request that. And at any point between now and, down the road, the whole process can be stopped. So if
But
there's
the language in the proposition cannot be altered, right?
Right, the proposition is finalized today, to basically get turned in with the process going forward. But at any point in time, we could withdraw one or both of these and stop the process. We could even stop it after the vote occurred, by not moving forward at that point. I mean, the plan is to typically, go forward, have the election, immediately have a special meeting thereafter, canvass the votes, assess the tax. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. So, this isn't an irrevocable, irreversible course, from today, but to the extent that issues like this are raised, and they can be reasonably addressed, then I think, the board can address them and take them into consideration. And either go forward or not go forward.
I really believe that if you made it really specific, and then you name out what you want OB, you want something else, even though you're not getting the parameter that you really want, you can kill the tax later and go after another one if you want it to be more vague, right? A couple of years down the road. And the people vote for it because you did what you said you were gonna do. But if you do this and it don't pan out, and the end is vague, and you take the money and put it somewhere else, doing something else, we're gonna have a beauty.
So, so we can work on getting that from Ochsner. I think everyone needs to understand that, to your point, the whole purpose of going for this tax is to recruit the OBGYN physicians or ancillary staff and or nursing staff, whatever you
Yeah.
take.
Whatever you need
For
to make it happen.
staff for the unit,
With the labor and delivery.
the labor and delivery unit, to be
And
funded.
for the kid, I mean,
Yeah,
the
pediatric.
kids,
Yeah,
they go together.
yes, it is.
I'm not a doctor, I don't know, so.
And then, and allow basically, kind of be able to fund that ramp up period.
Yeah.
To where they can get to a place to where they're safe and financially solvent, I guess we could say.
I just don't want you to go too vague, because they're gonna pick it apart. They're gonna just go after it, and get a couple of naysayers, because you remember, it's not just Morgan City. Morgan City is just half. It's Amelia, it's Berwick, it's Bayou Vista, it's Patterson. So I don't, I can only say so much to the other mayors, and then at that point, they take their own mind, they gotta deal with. In Morgan City, I believe there's faith in what's happening, because people see the difference and they willing to support it. But I'm not 100% sure that everybody else is seeing it that way, right? Especially when you get all around to Patterson, which is almost the same distance go to Franklin as it come here, So you gotta kind of pay attention to that. That's just my belief, and the people pick me apart, not bad, but enough just over one word. Imagine over a theory of words. I think it's better to go after one specific thing right now, and then go after the rest later once you fix that. Oh, look, we fixed it. All right, so now we want to kill this tax. Tell people that, and then start another tax for whatever else you want to go after. It's not really that hard to do. I just think really vague like that, you're gonna have a tough time at it. I know you're gonna have a tough time at it.
So Bill, what does this do to our timeline if we don't, we're still able to amend this or change, once we pass a resolution on this verbiage,
think it's pretty tight. But why don't we do this? Why don't we take a recess? And I'm gonna get bond counsel on the phone and get some input in light of this development. And,
You can go one more month, because you can get on the second election, the runoff election if you want. I mean, everybody's gonna be on it because you're gonna have runoff for government, you're gonna have runoff for everything else, so everybody's gonna be out voting anyway. You know, there's no way that many people get a straight month, because, you know, for everyone, you're probably gonna have one on senators, you know, probably gonna have one on the other things too, so there's a lot of people running for a lot of offices. So, no telling what happens in the parish too, you know.
Right.
Parish and state this time. Sure. So, you could get a guy. I mean, but in theory, you don't have to vote on the exact wording, you just gotta vote on what your intent is, and he can work it to be the intent of that.
Right.
You know, we do it all the time at the council, we can change the wording on what is the intent of that ordinance.
Right.
You can do that. I think you can get picked apart.
Well, I think I'm fine with that. I'm fine with adjusting the language to be very specific to, you're gonna do pizza, basically.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have to stay somewhat general with recruiting, because we're not gonna only have to help the assistants recruiting physicians, but also nurses.
Well, if you say OBGYN or whatever, the OB plus P's, whatever it is, and then you say recruiting of doctors, nurses, whatever numbers, whatever other things it is, that's in any class you can recruit, right? But this is to help. The main objective here is to help OB and P's and recruit doctors, whatever, you know,
Okay, so
nurses.
I'll bring that train apart. This, what we were saying right here in the last portion, yes.
I never saw it. I
To
don't
be
know.
used by the district to improve, maintain, and operate hospital and other healthcare facilities in the district, to include providing and supporting labor and delivery services, physician recruitment, and community outreach.
But the first part of it, you can't put, because the people are gonna say, why in the world will we maintain, the hospital and the services when these people making millions of dollars? Why would we put our millions of dollars up?
So it's the other healthcare facilities, is that what it is? Is that the one that's
Yeah, I'm not-
do an extra?
You got one right there.
It's the third to last line.
Improve, maintain, and operate hospital and other healthcare facilities in the district.
So what if we made that.
You're not operating a hospital, you're not even operating OB. You're just trying to recruit the people.
Right, but it's not building, so if we wanted to, let's say, renovate OB floor to some extent to make it more attractive for young women who wanna have their children here, how would we have that capability? Or would we?
And would fall under labor and delivery services?
I don't think, doing renovations to a floor would be, but it gives us that potential option. Because I think the solution to this problem is multifaceted. It's not just on tourism, it's going domestic, and it's the facility itself.
What if you said something, I'm just putting devil's advocate, but what if you said improve, maintain, district to improve, maintain, and operate? I wouldn't say operate. Improve, maintain, and maintain the OB ward. And recruit.
But it's pediatric ward too.
Well, whatever, OB and pediatric, whatever the actual wording is.
Right.
And this deal is the whole hospital. And then people are like, hold on a second, dude. I thought we were going after OB stuff, but now we're gonna have the opportunity to be very vague to help out the billion-dollar company that's making millions of dollars. I'm just telling you, they're gonna pick it apart, dude. It ain't me picking it apart. It's the people who are way better on this than me. You know?
And what's
what's defined as other healthcare facilities in the district? What's,
So, that was put in by bond council in connection with, constitutional requirements relative to, this particular village. So there are various sections in the statute and the Constitution that authorize political bodies, political of the state to pursue a tax. And in with this particular resolution with this particular village, it was done constitutionally. And so I actually raised that issue, and I got told that it had to be worded that way based on where the authorization for the tax came.
So we can't change that portion of
I don't think so. But I did speak with bond counsel. There are a couple things. One is if the board wanted to, could defer these issues and not vote on them tonight. That's one option. We could announce that we have another meeting and take this up. We have to announce it. It would be after more than 10 days from today. And so we could do that. One person mentioned, I think it was the mayor, about getting on the November ballot. The issue with that is that we couldn't get tax money for this year. So if we want to start the unit up as quickly as possible, it's important to be on the October ballot instead of the November ballot, because the November ballot doesn't help us this year. It would be another year before we saw any funds, and so we'd be challenged in that area. The other thing to do is if a consultant has arrived, we could move up the agenda item number 12 and take that up now and have an executive session and then come back to these items.
I'm just,
No,
my concern, because I'm dealing with the people.
No, it's very
Every
helpful.
single day I get the calls and I get the texts.
I think it's very important that people understand what we're trying to do, to your point. And we gotta get these legal ramifications in there. So I think a lot of that's gonna fall on us as far as our message.
I think if you put maintain, because the facility of the hospital is intertwined with the facility of that doctor's office over there, other facilities, that's probably why it's gotta be in there, because you're trying to work on the hospital, and the hospital owns the other building too, right?
We own all.
Right, but it's all the same place.
Right.
So it says other facilities.
It encompasses in medical office.
It might be explainable, but it'd be a lot of explaining to a lot of people,
Yeah.
No,
it's a good point, but I think we just have to be very clear in the message. Because I think everyone knows who's been paying attention to this, they know our intent with this. But to have that mesh with the legal verbiage and wording is.
There's not as many people as you think been paying attention to it. Not nearly as many as gonna vote on it. Because when you come with a presidential and or governor vote, everybody, 60-something% of people vote. So I don't think you had the attention across the board, all the way from Patterson to Amelia of 60-something%. I just don't think. Because the only people that were in here were the politicians and the people that work at the hospital. There was nobody else here.
Right.
In the big meeting when it was full, right?
I've spoken to a lot of the patients that I've run across are familiar with it and even ask me questions about it. So I think it's out there, people know about it, but you're right, we need to be very, as specific as we can be, I think is important.
I'm just saying, y'all are on board. I'm just, if
Well,
you
we
want
certainly want to be
the
successful.
mayors to go to their people and say, I need you to pay extra $150 on your house this year. That really means something to somebody, $150. You gotta really explain it. You gotta be pretty detailed on it. It's too much for us.
We gotta wait 5 lines. We got 5 lines to do that. That's the problem.
Well, that's why you gotta cut it out. You gotta go. If I was doing it, if Lee Dragon was doing it, not even the mayor, I would go after what I need to fix right now and then you could kill the tax in a few years and then start another one, and you'll have to figure it.
So we got some numbers, since you mentioned numbers we want to be accurate, so I understand you had 5.5 mils, with $100,000 home, that would be $13.75 a year on $100,000.
Because they get $75,000.
So I want, you throw numbers out there, I don't want to just wildly throw out numbers, I want the public to have accurate information. On a $150,000 house, that would mean $41.25. And on a $200,000 house, it would be $68.75. So
It's not bad, at all.
less than library tax in
I think it's like 5%. So,
but that's part of the messaging.
yeah, you're right, you're 100% right. Sometimes it could be $2 and they're gonna go off the handle.
So why don't we bump up, well, I should
Go.
do,
Well,
yeah, why don't we just, without objection, we could jump down to 12 and then come back out and address those issues, that we have some time to discuss. So, you have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we, move the agenda up to item 12.
no voting.
A second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright, let's go on to the executive session. Back to order. So, we're going to start back on our, item 9.
Item 10.
Item 10, discussion and any action on the resolution to call an election to rededicate previously collected funds.
Yeah, so, in connection with this, resolution, we now have a proposition read, shall Hospital Service District No2 of the Parish of St Mary, State of Louisiana, the district be authorized to rededicate revenues previously restricted, sorry. Page, turn to the other side. Shall Hospital Service District No2, the Parish of St Mary, State of Louisiana, levy 5.5 mils tax on all property subject to taxation within the district for a period of 10 years, beginning with the year 2023 and ending with the year 2032. An estimated $2 million reasonably expected at this time to be collected from the levy of the tax for an entire year to be used by the district to improve, maintain, operate hospital and other healthcare facilities in the district, to include supporting labor and delivery, and pediatric services, physician recruitment, and community outreach. So the remainder of the resolution remains the same, so I recommend the motion to adopt that resolution.
I make a motion to adopt that resolution. You already have something to say, is that what?
The resolution number 1, yeah, that you have in your packets with that proposition.
So I make a motion to adopt resolution number 1.
Second.
Second, discussion, all in favor? Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. And motion carries. All right. Let's see.
Okay, 11.
11. What did 10? We have to talk about the rededication. I think we switched those up.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So item 10, discussion and action on the resolution to call an election to rededicate previously collected funds. It's going to be the first one you read.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had a whole copy of the agenda. My mistake. All right, so this resolution number 2 is the proposition will now read, shall Hospital Service District number 2, the Parish of St Mary, State of Louisiana, the district be authorized to rededicate revenues previously restricted for improving and maintaining hospital facilities and acquiring equipment for the additional purposes of providing and supporting labor and delivery and pediatric services, physician recruitment, and community outreach. So I recommend you have a motion to adopt this, and you have a motion and a vote on that.
I make a motion to to adopt resolution number 2.
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain. Motion carries. And discussion and any action on community outreach initiatives and the clock and deputy agreement with the Ochsner. I spoke with Dewan earlier today, and she has sent me an update on some initiatives and programs that are to be pursued. The one that they're most excited about is getting the Safe Sitter program getting started back up at the hospital. It's a program for babysitters to educate on child development, first responder type course. I actually sent one of the essays written from the last class, which was my wife Abby. She got the star. The star of the class back in the good old days. So that'll be started up soon. They have some mental health for youth seminars coming up, and they're also working with community leaders within the schools to begin actually getting into our school system to do education and outreach programs. So more to come on that. And they've been plugging away. There's always something going on, that's for sure. So the discussion I had with her today was I'd like to see more actual programs transpiring within the school itself, just because it exposes to more children, and to try to get on the community a little bit more. Most of our programs thus far, not all of them, but some of them have been within the facility, which I think is good. It brings people in to see the hospital, but I do think we need to start mixing it up and getting out in the community, and that's what their preference. So the one's doing a fantastic job. Any questions about community outreach? I'll move on to item 13. Motion.